We are counting down 7 unsettling twists behind the buried political testament of Karl Doenitz and the shadow it cast over post-war Germany. 7. The Last Order of the Bunker. In late April 1945, with Soviet troops closing in on Berlin, Adolf Hitler split his own office. He named Joseph Goebbels as Reich Chancellor and handed the role of Reich President to the admiral who commanded the German Navy, Karl Doenitz. It was a calculated move to keep authority alive once the bunker fell. Doenitz now held the closest thing to legal succession the dying regime could offer. This matters because it gave him a claim to head of state status that would haunt the post-war narrative for decades. 6. A government on the edge of the map. Doenitz set up shop at Flensburg near the Danish border while Berlin burned. He broadcast that Hitler was dead and that he would continue the war only to evacuate soldiers and civilians from the Baltic in a vast sea lift known as Operation Hannibal. The Western Allies refused to recognize his government. Yet, Winston Churchill publicly called him the designated head of the German state when announcing victory. That tension between rejection and recognition made Flensburg a strange twilight cabinet. It mattered because de facto authority existed without de jure acceptance, a grey zone that would later feed arguments about legitimacy. 5. The lightning end and a loaded label. On May 23, 1945, British forces arrested Doenitz and his ministers and extinguished the Flensburg government. At Nuremberg, the tribunal sentenced Doenitz to 10 years, and in its language it called him Hitler's successor and head of state. The words were almost a legal fingerprint that never washed away. Even the confiscated Grand Admiral's baton taken at his arrest survives as a symbol of that brief sovereignty. This matters because the Allies tried to deny a government while their own court language arguably acknowledged it. 4. The vanishing of the Reich on paper. After Germany's surrender on May 8th, the Allies declared supreme authority over German territory in the Berlin Declaration of June 5th. To many scholars, this meant the German state had ceased to exist, and that Doenitz commanded troops, but not a country. Under that reading, his authority evaporated the moment the surrender took effect. It matters because statehood rests on recognition and sovereignty, and this legal frame became the cornerstone used to dismiss any lingering claim that Flensburg was real government. 3. A provocateur knocks on the admiral's door. In 1974, Manfred Roeder, a far-right activist with a flair for spectacle, contacted Doenitz. Roeder insisted the Reich had never truly ended and that Doenitz remained the lawful president. When Doenitz demurred, Roeder declared himself successor anyway and staged his own phantom institutions. This matters not because Roeder held power, but because the encounter seems to have stirred Doenitz to revisit the meaning of his brief rule and to put pen to paper on a political testament. 2. The Testament and the Reich Idea. In 1975, Doenitz wrote a 3-page testament. He claimed that the principal Allied powers had effectively recognized him as head of state, cited Churchill's phrase, and noted the tribunal's wording. Then came the twist. He declared that on his release in 1956, he saw 2 German states on unannexed Reich soil. When East Germany later dropped reunification from its constitution, he argued that West Germany became the bearer of the Reich idea. Finally, he transferred the content and purpose of his office as the last head of state of the German Reich to the federal president of West Germany. This matters because it attempted a symbolic handover of legitimacy across the gulf from the Third Reich to the Federal Republic. 1. Hidden in Bonn, revealed decades later. In January 1981, after Doenitz died, his lawyer delivered the testament to West German leaders. The reaction was quiet alarm. Officials judged it politically explosive, placed it in safes, and let it vanish into files for years. Only in the 1990s did it resurface in archives, and the public did not see it until 2015. Why bury it? Because it reopened uncomfortable questions. Was Churchill's tolerance for Flensburg just practical disarmament, or a hedge against Stalin? Could an enemy order dissolve a legal government? Were the post-war German states simply creations of occupying powers? The testament did not decide those questions, but it forced them back into view. That is why its long suppression matters. It shows how a 3-week government at the end of a ruined regime could still cast a long, troubling shadow over the story Germany tells about itself. In the end, these 7 twists form a single arc, a hurried succession in a bunker, a government that both existed and did not, a court that named a head of state it could not fully acknowledge, a legal doctrine that erased a nation, a provocateur who rekindled an old conscience, a testament that tried to pass a torch, and a state that hid the paper for a generation. History seldom ends when the guns fall silent. Sometimes it lingers in a locked drawer, waiting to be read.